You know what happens when you tell someone you're going to Dagestan? They look at you like you just announced you're planning a vacation on Mars. This Russian republic sits tucked away in the North Caucasus, sandwiched between Georgia and the Caspian Sea, and for most people, it might as well be invisible. While millions flock to Moscow's Red Square or St. Petersburg's palaces, Dagestan remains this mysterious land that even Russians themselves approach with curiosity and caution. But here's the thing. What if I told you that for just $500, you could live like a local in one of the world's most culturally rich and misunderstood places? Not survive, not scrape by, but actually live with dignity, eat amazing food, and experience traditions that have survived conquests, wars, and Soviet rule. Sounds impossible? That's because you've never heard the real story of Dagestan. The Western media has painted this place with broad strokes of conflict and conservatism, but they're missing the most incredible part. Behind those headlines is a land where hospitality isn't just politeness, it's a sacred duty. Where 30 different ethnic groups have coexisted for centuries, each with their own language, yet somehow they've created this beautiful tapestry of shared traditions. Where the mountains hold villages that time forgot, and the food, well, let's just say you'll understand why locals never want to leave. So buckle up, because we're about to shatter every preconception you have about this place. We're going where tour buses don't go, eating food you can't pronounce, and meeting people whose stories will change how you think about hospitality, family, and what it really means to preserve culture in our globalized world. Comment a mountain emoji if you've never heard of Dagestan before today. I guarantee you are not alone. And by the end of this, you'll be planning your own adventure to this hidden corner of the world. The first thing that hits you about Dagestan is just how impossibly diverse this place is. We're talking about a territory roughly the size of South Carolina, but packed with more ethnic variety than most entire countries. 30-plus ethnic groups call this place home, speaking languages that belong to completely different families, some related to Arabic, others to Turkish, and many that exist nowhere else on Earth. The Caucasus Mountains dominate the landscape here, creating these natural barriers that have allowed different cultures to develop in isolation for millennia. You've got the Avars, who make up about 30% of the population and are famous for their warrior traditions. The Dargins, master craftsmen who've been working metal and wood for generations. The Kumyks, who controlled the lowlands and developed sophisticated trade networks. And dozens of smaller groups, each fiercely proud of their heritage. These aren't just different tribes that happen to live in the same area, they're completely distinct cultures with their own languages, customs, and even architectural styles. Walk from one village to the next, sometimes just a few kilometers apart, and you might as well be crossing international borders. The houses change, the food changes, even the way people greet each other is different. But here's where it gets really interesting. Despite all this diversity, or maybe because of it, Dagestani society has developed this incredible system of mutual respect and hospitality. When your survival depends on cooperation with neighbors who might speak a completely different language, you learn to find common ground fast. Islam provided one unifying factor when it arrived in the 7th century, but even before that, these mountain communities had developed elaborate codes of honor and guest rights. The Caspian Sea coastline adds another dimension entirely. While the mountain villages feel ancient and timeless, cities like Makhachkala, the capital, are unmistakably modern. Oil money, Caspian caviar trade, and proximity to Central Asian markets have created pockets of real wealth alongside the traditional mountain economy. And let's talk about those mountains for a second. The Greater Caucasus Range here includes some of the most dramatic landscapes you'll ever see. We're not just talking scenic, we're talking about geological formations that have shaped human history. These peaks created natural fortresses where small communities could resist everyone from Mongol invasions to Tsarist expansion to Soviet collectivization. The isolation wasn't always voluntary, though. Throughout history, these mountain valleys served as refuges for people fleeing persecution, invasion, or forced cultural assimilation. That is part of why the traditional culture here runs so deep. When the outside world was trying to erase your identity, the mountains gave you a place to preserve it. Today, you can still find villages where the primary economy is herding sheep and goats, where extended families live in traditional stone houses that their great-grandfathers built, and where the rhythm of life follows seasons rather than clocks. But drive an hour down the mountain, and you're in a world of oil refineries, universities, and shopping malls that wouldn't look out of place in any modern city. This geographic diversity creates a unique economic situation that makes that $500 lifestyle possible. Mountain villages where land is cheap and life is simple, coastal areas with job opportunities and trade, and everything in between. Understanding this landscape is crucial because it explains not just how people live, but why Dagestani culture has this fascinating ability to be simultaneously ancient and adaptable. Now, let's get into what daily life actually looks like for regular Dagestani families, because this is where those stereotypes really start falling apart. The Western imagination tends to paint traditional Muslim societies with pretty broad brushes, but spend a few days in a Dagestani household and you'll realize how oversimplified those assumptions are. First off, family structure here is complex in ways that would make a sociology textbook jealous. Yes, extended families are important, but the dynamics vary hugely depending on which ethnic group you're talking about, whether you're in the mountains or the city, and what generation you're dealing with. In traditional Avar families, for example, the oldest woman often wields enormous influence over household decisions, despite what outsiders might assume about patriarchal structures. Morning routines in rural areas still follow patterns that connect directly to the land. Families wake before dawn not because they're trying to be productive in some modern sense, but because livestock need attention and mountain weather can change fast. But here's what surprised me most: the integration of technology into these ancient routines. It's not unusual to see a shepherd checking weather apps on his smartphone while herding sheep along paths his ancestors used for centuries. Tea culture is absolutely central to daily life, and I mean this in ways that go far beyond just drinking hot beverages. The preparation, serving, and sharing of tea is a complex social ritual that governs everything from business negotiations to conflict resolution. Families might go through several tea services in a single day, each with different purposes and protocols. Morning tea is family time. Afternoon tea is for neighbors and casual visitors. Evening tea is for serious conversations and decision-making. Women's roles vary dramatically depending on location and generation, but the common thread is competence. These aren't decorative figures waiting for male protection, they're managing complex households, often including multiple generations and extended family members. In mountain villages, women frequently handle the family finances, manage agricultural decisions, and maintain the social networks that keep communities functioning. The respect for elders here goes beyond polite deference. It's a practical system for preserving knowledge and maintaining social stability. Elderly family members aren't burdens to be managed. They're living libraries of cultural knowledge, local history, and practical skills. Their opinions carry real weight in family decisions, from marriage arrangements to business investments. Children grow up multilingual almost by default. Russian for school and official business, the family's ethnic language for home and cultural identity, often Arabic for religious purposes, and usually at least conversational ability in neighboring ethnic languages for community interaction. This linguistic flexibility creates cognitive advantages that outsiders rarely appreciate. Community gatherings happen constantly and serve multiple functions beyond socializing. Weddings, religious holidays, and seasonal celebrations are opportunities for information sharing, matchmaking, business networking, and conflict resolution. These aren't just parties, they're how society maintains itself in places where formal institutions might be limited. The pace of life varies dramatically between urban and rural areas, but even in cities like Makhachkala, There's this underlying rhythm that prioritizes relationships over efficiency. Business meetings start with extensive personal inquiries. Shopping trips become social events, and even routine tasks like visiting government offices become opportunities for community interaction. Work patterns still reflect seasonal and agricultural rhythms, even for people with modern jobs. Construction work might slow dramatically during certain religious periods. Teachers adjust their expectations based on harvest times when rural students need to help their families. And business cycles follow traditional calendar patterns as much as market forces. The integration of technology is fascinating because it's selective and purposeful rather than wholesale adoption. Smartphones are universal, but they're used primarily for communication and religious purposes rather than entertainment. Social media connects diaspora communities and helps preserve cultural practices, but it hasn't replaced face-to-face interaction as the primary social mode. Evening family gatherings are sacred time when the day's events get processed, community news gets shared, and cultural transmission happens naturally. These aren't formal education sessions, they're organic conversations where younger generations absorb values, learn family history, and develop their cultural identity. And here's something that might surprise you. Gender segregation isn't nearly as rigid as outsiders assume. While formal religious occasions and certain public spaces maintain traditional separations, daily family life involves constant interaction between men and women of different generations. Household decisions are genuinely collaborative, with different family members contributing expertise in their areas of strength. Now let's talk about something that'll make your stomach growl. The food situation in Dagestan is absolutely incredible, and it's a perfect example of how that 500 can stretch way further than you'd imagine. We're talking about a cuisine that developed in isolation for centuries, drawing influences from Persian, Turkish, Arabic, and Russian traditions while creating something entirely unique. The star of Dagestani cuisine is definitely Khinkal, but not the Georgian version you might know. Dagestani Khinkal is more like thick pasta squares served with incredibly rich meat broth and multiple sauces. Each ethnic group has their own variation. Avar Khinkal uses a yogurt-based dough that gives it this amazing tang. Dargan Khinkal is thicker and chewier, and Lezgi Khinkal often includes wild herbs that grow only in specific mountain valleys. A proper Khinkal meal is a social event that can last for hours. The meat, usually lamb or beef, is slow-cooked with mountain herbs until it falls apart. The broth gets ladled over the pasta along with garlic sauce that's so potent it'll clear your sinuses from across the room. Then there's typically a tomato-based sauce, pickled vegetables, and always fresh herbs that were probably picked that morning. Chudu is another staple that shows off the region's baking traditions. These are thin, flaky breads stuffed with everything from cheese and herbs to meat and potatoes. The dough technique takes years to master. It needs to be rolled so thin you can see through it, but strong enough not to tear when you fold in the filling. Street vendors sell fresh chudu for maybe 50 cents, making it perfect budget food that's also genuinely delicious. The Caspian Sea connection brings incredible seafood that most people don't associate with this region. Fresh sturgeon, caviar, obviously, and a dozen species of fish you've never heard of. Kutum, for example, is this amazing white fish that's grilled with herbs and served with rice pilaf. A meal that would cost $50 at a fancy restaurant anywhere else runs about $3 at local establishments. Mountain honey deserves its own paragraph because it's unlike anything you've tasted. Bees here collect nectar from wildflowers that grow only at specific altitudes, creating honey varieties with complex flavor profiles. Some are almost medicinal, others are floral and delicate. And the really special ones have this crystalline texture that melts on your tongue. Locals use it as medicine, sweetener, and gift for special occasions. Urbek is this traditional paste made from various nuts and seeds that's become trendy health food in Moscow, but remains everyday nutrition here. Flaxseed urbek, sesame urbek, walnut, urbec each provides different nutritional benefits and flavors. Mixed with honey, it becomes this energy-dense food that shepherds carry during long days in the mountains. Tea service comes with an array of sweets and preserves that showcase local fruits: cornelian cherry jam, rosehip preserves, candied walnuts, and dozens of variations depending on what's in season. These are not just desserts, they are ways of preserving the brief mountain growing season and providing vitamin C during long winters. Pricing is where your mind will get blown if you're used to Western food costs. A substantial meal at a local restaurant, and I'm talking Khinkal with meat, fresh bread, salad, and tea, runs about $4 to $6. Street food is even cheaper. A fresh chudu with cheese costs around 60 cents. A glass of fresh honey from local producers costs maybe $2 and will last you weeks. Markets are sensory overload in the best possible way. Fresh herbs bundled and sold for pennies. Wheels of local cheese, hanging sausages made with traditional spice blends, and produce that was literally harvested that morning. You can fill a shopping bag with enough fresh vegetables for a week for under $10. The seasonal variations keep the cuisine interesting year-round. Spring brings wild greens that get incorporated into everything from soups to salads. Summer means fresh berries, stone fruits, and vegetables. Fall is harvest time for nuts, apples, and the last of the warm weather produce. Winter relies on preserved foods, dried fruits, and hearty stews that warm you from the inside out. Cooking techniques reflect both the available ingredients and the practical needs of mountain life. Slow braising makes tough mountain lamb tender and flavorful. Fermentation preserves vegetables through winter and creates complex flavors. Drying and smoking extend the shelf life of meat and fish without refrigeration. And here's something beautiful about Dagestani food culture: sharing meals with guests isn't just hospitality, it's a sacred obligation. Refuse food when visiting someone's home, and you'll genuinely offend them. This means that travelers, especially respectful ones, often find themselves invited to family meals that showcase the absolute best of local cuisine. The restaurant scene in cities like Makhachkala offers everything from traditional family recipes to modern fusion approaches. But honestly, the best meals happen in home kitchens where techniques passed down through generations create flavors you simply cannot get anywhere else. Those experiences are priceless, but they're also free if you approach them with genuine respect and curiosity. This brings us to one of the most complex and misunderstood aspects of Dagestani culture: relationships, marriage, and the role of women in society. If you're getting your information from news headlines, you probably have some pretty inaccurate assumptions about how gender dynamics actually work here. The reality is far more nuanced and, in many ways, more progressive than outsiders realize. First, let's address the elephant in the room: arranged marriages. Yes, they still happen, but the process is nothing like the forced arrangements that Western media often portrays. Modern arranged marriages in Dagestan are more like structured introductions between families who share similar values and social status. The young people involved have veto power, and the emphasis is on compatibility rather than just family alliances. What's fascinating is how technology has changed the courtship process while preserving traditional values. Young people now often meet through social media or mutual friends, conduct their own compatibility assessments, and then involve their families in the formal processes. It's like dating with family quality control, which honestly prevents a lot of the relationship disasters that happen when people fly solo. Women's roles vary dramatically depending on education, location, and generational factors. In rural mountain communities, traditional gender divisions are more pronounced, but that doesn't mean women lack influence or autonomy. Mountain women often manage household finances, make agricultural decisions, and wield significant influence in community matters. They're not decorative, they're competent partners in family enterprises. Urban professional women in Makhachkala often navigate multiple cultural expectations simultaneously. They might work as doctors, teachers, or business owners during the day. then participate in traditional family roles during evenings and weekends. This balancing act requires incredible skill, and most manage it with grace that would impress anyone. The concept of family honor affects both men and women, but in different ways. For women, it often relates to behavior that reflects positively on their families and communities. For men, it's about providing protection and economic stability. These expectations create pressure, but they also create support systems that many Western individualistic cultures lack. Dating customs are evolving rapidly, especially among younger generations. While traditional courtship involved heavy family oversight, modern young people often develop relationships through university, work, or social media. However, these relationships still typically follow certain protocols about family introduction and approval before becoming serious. The wedding traditions are absolutely spectacular and can provide insight into how these complex social systems actually function. Dagestani weddings often last for days and involve elaborate rituals that serve multiple purposes beyond celebrating the couple. There are opportunities for community bonding, family networking, and cultural transmission. Traditional wedding preparations can take months and involve entire extended families. Women collaborate on elaborate handicrafts. Men organize logistics and entertainment. And everyone contributes to creating an event that showcases the community's cultural wealth. These aren't just parties, they're demonstrations of social solidarity and cultural continuity. The financial aspects of weddings reveal important economic dynamics. Families often spend significant portions of their annual income on wedding celebrations, but this isn't wasteful consumption. These events create reciprocal obligations that function as informal insurance systems. Help with someone's wedding today, receive help with your own family needs later. Modern young people are increasingly choosing partners based on personal compatibility rather than purely family considerations, but they're doing so within cultural frameworks that still emphasize family approval and social harmony. It's evolution rather than revolution. Educational opportunities for women have expanded dramatically in recent decades. Universities in Makhachkala and other cities have female enrollment rates that equal or exceed male rates in many fields. Professional women are becoming increasingly common in healthcare, education, and business sectors. However, work-life balance expectations remain challenging. Professional women are often expected to maintain traditional family responsibilities while pursuing career advancement. This creates stress, but it also creates communities of women who support each other through shared challenges. Divorce, while socially discouraged, is legally available and occasionally necessary. The process typically involves extensive family mediation efforts before formal proceedings. When divorces do occur, custody arrangements usually prioritize children's welfare and maintaining family relationships rather than adversarial competition between parents. Religious observance varies widely among women, from strict traditional practice to more casual cultural identification. This diversity reflects the broader complexity of Dagestani society, where religious, ethnic, and cultural identities intersect in highly individual ways. The hospitality obligations that women often shoulder can be enormous, especially during religious holidays and family celebrations. Preparing elaborate meals for extended family and community members requires significant skill and effort, but it also provides opportunities for social influence and cultural leadership. Interethnic marriages within Dagestan are common and generally accepted, reflecting the practical reality of diverse communities living in close proximity. These relationships often serve to strengthen social bonds between different ethnic groups while maintaining respect for distinct cultural traditions. And here's something that might surprise you: many Dagestani women, especially older generations, travel extensively within Russia and former Soviet states for trade, family visits, and pilgrimage purposes. They're not isolated or confined. They're often the primary maintainers of far-flung social networks that keep communities connected across vast distances. The festival and celebration calendar in Dagestan is packed with events that showcase just how rich and varied the cultural traditions are here. These aren't tourist attractions or museum pieces, they're living traditions that continue to evolve while maintaining their essential cultural functions. Weddings are the most elaborate celebrations, and they're genuinely spectacular. A traditional Dagestani wedding can last anywhere from 2 days to a week, depending on the family's resources and social status. The preparation period might stretch for months, with different family members taking responsibility for various aspects of the celebration. The actual ceremony combines Islamic religious requirements with ethnic-specific traditions that can vary dramatically from one community to another. Avar weddings include specific dances and songs that tell the story of the bride's family lineage. Dargan weddings feature elaborate displays of traditional craftsmanship, including handmade textiles and metalwork. Lezgi weddings often incorporate ancient fertility rituals that predate Islamic influence. Music and dance are central to these celebrations, and each ethnic group has distinct performance traditions. The Lezginka, which many people associate with Georgian culture, actually has dozens of regional variations throughout Dagestan. Avar versions emphasize athletic displays of male prowess, while Kumyk versions include more intricate partner interactions. Traditional wedding foods showcase the absolute best of local cuisine, with families competing to present the most elaborate and delicious spreads. We're talking about meals that include 20 or 30 different dishes, each prepared according to recipes that might be centuries old. The cost might seem extravagant, but remember that these celebrations function as community investment. The social capital generated by a successful wedding provides benefits that last for generations. Religious festivals blend Islamic observances with local cultural elements in fascinating ways. Eid celebrations include traditional Islamic elements like communal prayers and charitable giving, but they're also occasions for displaying regional cultural identity through specific foods, clothing, and performance traditions. The spring celebration of Nowruz, which has Persian origins, gets interpreted through distinctly Dagestani cultural lenses. Different ethnic groups emphasize different aspects. Agricultural communities focus on fertility and abundance rituals, while trading communities emphasize renewal of business relationships and social contracts. Harvest festivals vary by region and primary crops, but they all serve similar functions of community bonding and cultural transmission. Mountain communities might celebrate successful sheep breeding seasons, while coastal areas focus on fishing traditions and Caspian Sea ceremonies. Winter celebrations help communities survive the psychological challenges of long, cold mountain winters. Traditional storytelling events, craft-making gatherings, and community feast preparation provide social interaction and cultural education during months when outdoor work is limited. The traditional calendar includes dozens of smaller celebrations tied to local saints, historical events, and seasonal transitions. These micro-festivals often involve specific neighborhoods or extended family groups rather than entire communities, creating multiple layers of social bonding throughout the year. Athletic competitions and games feature prominently in many celebrations. Traditional wrestling, horseback riding demonstrations, and tests of strength connect modern celebrations to ancient warrior traditions. These aren't just entertainment, they're ways of maintaining physical fitness and cultural identity. Craft demonstrations during festivals serve educational and economic purposes simultaneously. Master craftspeople display traditional techniques while training apprentices and selling their work. These events help preserve traditional skills while providing income opportunities for artisans. Contemporary festivals are evolving to include modern elements while maintaining traditional cores. Youth music festivals might feature traditional instruments alongside modern genres. Food festivals showcase ancient recipes alongside fusion innovations. Cultural festivals use modern technology to document and share traditional practices. The economic impact of festivals on local communities is significant. Major celebrations can provide substantial income for local merchants, craftspeople, and service providers. Hotels, restaurants, and transportation services experience seasonal booms that help sustain local economies throughout the year. Festival participation creates social obligations and opportunities that extend far beyond the events themselves. Families who contribute labor or resources to community celebrations build relationships that provide mutual support during difficult times. These social networks function as informal insurance systems in communities where formal institutions might be limited. International visitors to these festivals often find themselves overwhelmed by the hospitality and cultural richness they encounter. However, respectful participation requires understanding cultural protocols around dress, behavior, and social interaction. The investment in cultural sensitivity pays off with access to authentic experiences that most tourists never see. Let's get into the brass tacks of actually living on $500 per month in Dagestan, because this is where the rubber meets the road for anyone seriously considering this adventure. I'm not talking about backpacker survival mode, I mean genuinely comfortable living that includes decent housing, good food, transportation, and even entertainment. Housing costs vary dramatically depending on location and standards, but the opportunities are genuinely impressive. In rural mountain villages, you can rent entire traditional houses for $1,508 per month. These aren't luxury accommodations, but they're clean, functional, and come with gardens where you can grow vegetables. In cities like Makhachkala, a decent one-bedroom apartment runs $150 monthly, while sharing a larger place with roommates can cut that to $60–80. The secret to affordable housing is understanding local networks rather than relying on formal rental markets. Many properties get rented through family connections, word-of-mouth recommendations, and community relationships rather than online listings or real estate agents. Building these relationships takes time and cultural sensitivity, but it provides access to better properties at lower costs. Food expenses can be incredibly low if you shop and eat like locals. Fresh produce from local markets, basic staples bought in bulk, and occasional meals at neighborhood restaurants can keep monthly food costs under $100 for one person. The key is embracing seasonal eating and learning to prepare traditional dishes rather than trying to maintain Western dietary habits. Transportation is probably cheaper than anywhere else you've lived. Marshrutkas, shared minibuses, connect most communities for just a few dollars per trip. Monthly passes for city transportation systems cost around $15. Shared taxis for longer distances are incredibly affordable when split among passengers. Owning a car is possible but unnecessary for most lifestyle choices. Healthcare costs are minimal for basic services, though quality varies significantly. Routine medical care, dental cleaning, and prescription medications cost a fraction of Western prices. However, serious medical conditions might require travel to larger cities or even outside Dagestan for advanced treatment. Utilities in most rental situations are either included or very affordable. Heating costs can be significant during winter months, but efficient wood or gas heating systems keep expenses manageable. Internet service is widely available and costs around $1,015 monthly for adequate speeds. Entertainment and cultural activities are often free or very inexpensive. Community events, religious celebrations, and social gatherings provide regular entertainment without cost. Movies, concerts, and sporting events in cities are priced for local incomes, meaning international visitors find them remarkably affordable. Clothing and household goods require strategic shopping. Traditional local products are often high quality and reasonably priced, while imported Western brands are expensive. Learning to appreciate local craftsmanship and traditional styles provides both cultural authenticity and economic advantages. Communication costs are minimal with modern technology. International calling and internet services allow maintaining relationships with home countries for just a few dollars monthly. Local phone service is incredibly cheap for domestic communications. The seasonal variations affect budgeting significantly. Winter months require higher heating costs but lower food expenses due to preserved foods and reduced fresh produce needs. Summer months offer abundant fresh foods, but might require cooling costs and increased transportation for outdoor activities. Personal services like haircuts, tailoring, and household help are extremely affordable by international standards. A haircut might cost $23. Professional tailoring services for traditional clothing cost $10 and household cleaning help is available for $510 per session. Educational opportunities, including language lessons and cultural classes, are often available through community organizations for minimal costs. University audit courses, craft learning sessions, and cultural workshops provide intellectual stimulation and social interaction at very reasonable prices. The social aspects of budgeting are crucial to understand. Hospitality obligations mean you'll often be invited to meals and events, reducing your personal food and entertainment costs. However, cultural expectations around gift-giving and reciprocal hospitality require budgeting for social contributions. Emergency fund considerations are important because unexpected expenses can be challenging to handle in isolated communities. Medical emergencies, transportation breakdowns, or family obligations might require quick access to additional funds that local banking systems can't always provide efficiently. Income generation opportunities exist for skilled individuals. English tutoring, online freelance work, craft production, and small business opportunities can supplement budgets or provide primary income. However, work permit requirements and tax obligations need careful attention for long-term residents. The psychological adjustment to a $500 lifestyle requires embracing different priorities and consumption patterns. Success depends on finding satisfaction in community relationships, cultural experiences, and natural beauty, rather than material accumulation and commercial entertainment. Getting around in Dagestan is an adventure in itself, and it perfectly illustrates how traditional and modern systems coexist in this fascinating region. The transportation infrastructure reflects both the challenging geography and the resourceful spirit of people who've been navigating these mountains for centuries. The Makhachkala system is the backbone of public transportation throughout Dagestan. These are typically converted vans or small buses that run fixed routes between towns and neighborhoods. They're cheap, frequent, and operate according to local customs rather than formal schedules. A Makhachkala ride might cost anywhere from 50 cents to $3 depending on distance, and they'll stop anywhere along the route if you flag them down. What makes Makhachkala travel interesting is the social dynamics. These aren't anonymous bus rides, they're community experiences. Passengers help each other with luggage, share food, engage in conversations about local events, and often make business connections. The drivers know their regular passengers personally and will wait for familiar faces or make special stops for elderly riders. Shared taxis operate on longer routes between major cities and remote villages. These typically use larger vehicles that seat 6 to 8 passengers and won't depart until full. This system provides affordable long-distance transportation while creating opportunities for cross-cultural interaction. A shared taxi from Makhachkala to mountain villages might take several hours but costs only $15 per person. The road conditions range from modern highways along the Caspian coast to barely passable mountain tracks that require serious driving skills. Many villages are accessible only by roads that would terrify most Western drivers, narrow passages carved into cliff faces, river crossings without bridges, and grades steep enough to make your ears pop. Professional drivers in Dagestan are genuinely skilled in ways that urban drivers can't appreciate. They navigate conditions that would challenge professional rally drivers while maintaining casual conversations and drinking tea from thermoses. These aren't just transportation providers, they are cultural intermediaries who help the travelers understand local customs and navigate social situations. Train service connects Dagestan to other parts of Russia, but the network within the republic is limited. The main rail line runs along the Caspian coast, connecting Makhachkala to cities like Astrakhan and Baku. These train journeys offer comfortable travel options for longer distances and opportunities to meet travelers from across the Caucasus region. Air travel through Makhachkala's airport connects Dagestan to Moscow, St. Petersburg, and other Russian cities. International connections are limited, but the domestic flights provide crucial links for business travel and family visits. Ticket prices fluctuate seasonally, with summer months being most expensive due to tourism and family travel. Walking and hiking are significant transportation modes in mountain communities where vehicles can't access all areas. Many villages have footpath networks that connect to neighboring communities, historical sites, and seasonal grazing areas. These trails often follow routes that have been used for centuries and provide insight into traditional travel patterns. Bicycle transportation is becoming more popular in cities and flat rural areas. While not traditional, bikes provide affordable personal transportation that doesn't require fuel or complex maintenance. Some younger residents use bicycles for commuting and recreational travel, especially in areas with decent road conditions. Seasonal transportation challenges affect accessibility throughout the republic. Winter snow can close mountain passes for months, isolating some communities until spring thaws. Spring floods might wash out bridges or make river crossings dangerous. Summer heat can make travel uncomfortable during midday hours. Navigation in Dagestan requires understanding local geography rather than relying exclusively on GPS systems. Mountain terrain can interfere with satellite signals, and many destinations aren't accurately represented on digital maps. Local knowledge about alternate routes, seasonal conditions, and cultural protocols becomes essential for successful travel. The fuel and maintenance infrastructure varies significantly between urban and rural areas. Cities have modern gas stations and auto repair services, while remote areas might require carrying extra fuel and basic repair supplies. Understanding these logistics is crucial for anyone planning extended travel in rural regions. Cultural protocols around transportation include hospitality obligations and social customs. Offering rides to pedestrians is considered polite, especially for elderly people or those carrying heavy loads. Passengers often contribute to fuel costs for longer journeys, and shared travel experiences create social obligations for future reciprocity. Commercial transportation services are expanding but still limited compared to urban areas elsewhere. Taxi services in cities use both traditional cabs and ride-sharing apps, but coverage in rural areas depends on local operators who might not use digital booking systems. Planning transportation often requires personal connections and advance arrangements. The adventure aspect of transportation in Dagestan is significant for visitors seeking authentic experiences. Journey times are unpredictable. Routes might change due to conditions or mechanical issues, and travel often becomes social and cultural experiences rather than merely getting from point A to point B. This unpredictability requires patience, but often provides the most memorable aspects of visiting the region. Now let's talk about the natural wonders that make Dagestan a paradise for outdoor enthusiasts and adventure seekers. This is not just scenic landscape, we're talking about geological formations and ecosystems that are genuinely world-class but remain virtually unknown to international tourism. Sulak Canyon is the crown jewel, and calling it impressive is a massive understatement. What makes Sulak Canyon special isn't just the scale, it's the accessibility and the complete lack of crowds. You can drive to several viewpoints, hike along rim trails, and even boat on the river below without encountering tour buses or overpriced concession stands. The silence is actually profound, just wind, water, and the occasional eagle soaring through the canyon depths. The Sarakum sand dune is this completely surreal geological anomaly, Europe's largest sand dune sitting in the middle of the Caucasus Mountains. This thing is 262 meters high and shifts constantly with wind patterns, creating a landscape that looks more like the Sahara than southern Russia. Local legends claim it was created by a giant carrying sand to build mountains, which honestly seems as plausible as the actual geological explanation. Mountain villages like Gunib and Kubachi offer authentic experiences of traditional highland life that have remained largely unchanged for centuries. Gunib sits on a plateau surrounded by dramatic cliffs and served as the final stronghold of Imam Shamil during his resistance to Russian conquest. Today, it's a peaceful village where locals still practice traditional crafts and agriculture while maintaining historical sites that tell stories of incredible courage and cultural resilience. Kubachi deserves special mention because it's been producing metalwork and jewelry for over 1,000 years. This is not tourist kitsch. These are artisans whose techniques get passed down through families and whose work ends up in museums worldwide. Visiting Kubachi means watching masters create intricate silverwork using tools and methods that predate industrial manufacturing. The Caspian Sea coastline provides a completely different natural experience. The beaches near Makhachkala offer swimming, fishing, and relaxation opportunities that most people don't associate with this region. The water is surprisingly warm during summer months, and the seafood is incredible. Plus, you'll have these beaches largely to yourself since international tourism hasn't discovered them yet. Waterfalls throughout the mountain regions create hiking destinations that range from easy walks to serious mountaineering challenges. The Tobat waterfall drops 70 meters in a series of cascades that create natural pools perfect for swimming. The Jurminsky Falls require more challenging hikes but reward visitors with completely pristine natural environments. The biodiversity in Dagestan's protected areas includes species that exist nowhere else on Earth. The Dagestan tur, a mountain goat species that lives only in these specific mountain ranges, represents evolution in isolation. Birdwatchers can find species that migrate between Europe, Asia, and Africa, making Dagestan a crucial stopover point for international bird migration routes. Cave systems throughout the limestone mountain regions offer spelunking opportunities for adventurous visitors. Many caves contain archaeological evidence of ancient human habitation, while others feature underground rivers and spectacular geological formations. The Karalovi cave system includes chambers large enough to hold concerts, which occasionally actually happen. Seasonal natural phenomena create different experiences throughout the year. Spring brings wildflower blooms that turn entire mountain slopes into natural gardens. Summer provides perfect hiking weather and access to high-altitude areas. Fall offers spectacular foliage colors and harvest festivals in mountain communities. Winter transforms the landscape into pristine snow environments perfect for skiing and winter sports. The thermal springs scattered throughout the mountain regions provide natural spa experiences without commercial development. These hot springs, heated by geothermal activity, create oases of warmth even during winter months. Local communities have used these springs for centuries for health and relaxation purposes. National parks and nature reserves protect significant portions of Dagestan's natural heritage while providing controlled access for visitors. These areas maintain traditional grazing and agricultural practices within ecological conservation frameworks, demonstrating sustainable relationships between human communities and natural environments. Photography opportunities in Dagestan's natural areas are limitless. The dramatic landscapes, unique wildlife, and traditional human activities create compositions that professional photographers travel thousands of miles to capture. The lighting conditions, especially during sunrise and sunset in the mountain regions, create visual experiences that cameras struggle to adequately document. The adventure tourism potential remains largely undeveloped, which means current visitors experience these natural wonders without crowds, commercialization, or infrastructure that might diminish their authentic character. However, this also means that planning and preparation are essential since services and facilities are limited compared to developed tourist destinations. When people ask about safety in Dagestan, You can see the concern in their eyes. The international media has painted this region with broad brushes of conflict and danger, but the reality of daily life here is far more nuanced and, frankly, far safer than headlines would suggest. However, understanding the real situation requires looking beyond stereotypes while acknowledging genuine challenges. The security situation has stabilized dramatically over the past decade. While the 1990s and early 2000s saw significant conflict and instability, modern Dagestan operates under effective law enforcement and civil administration. Cities like Makhachkala function like typical urban areas anywhere, with normal commercial activity, educational institutions, and social life. Violent crime rates against civilians, particularly foreigners, are actually quite low. The traditional cultural emphasis on hospitality and guest protection means that visitors who behave respectfully typically encounter extraordinary kindness and assistance. However, this protection comes with obligations. Respectful behavior, cultural sensitivity, and understanding local customs are essential. Healthcare infrastructure varies significantly between urban and rural areas. Makhachkala has modern hospitals and clinics that provide adequate care for most medical needs. However, rural mountain areas might have limited medical facilities, making basic first aid knowledge and medical insurance important for visitors planning extended stays in remote regions. Traditional medicine remains popular and often effective for common ailments. Local practitioners use herbal remedies, therapeutic techniques, and preventive practices that have been refined over centuries. While not replacements for modern medical care, these traditional approaches often provide effective treatment for minor health issues. Educational systems in Dagestan combine Russian federal standards with local cultural elements. Schools in cities provide education comparable to other Russian regions, while rural schools might have fewer resources but maintain strong community support. Higher education institutions in Makhachkala attract students from throughout the North Caucasus region. The language barrier presents practical challenges but not insurmountable ones. Russian serves as the lingua franca, so basic Russian language skills provide access to most situations. However, learning greetings and basic phrases in local languages demonstrates respect and often generates enthusiastic local assistance. Emergency services exist, but might be less responsive in rural areas due to geographic challenges and resource limitations. Understanding basic emergency procedures, maintaining communication capabilities, and having contingency plans becomes more important than in urban environments with comprehensive emergency infrastructure. Political discussions require sensitivity and awareness of local perspectives. While Dagestan is politically stable, historical grievances and current tensions exist beneath surface calm. Visitors should avoid political topics unless specifically invited into such discussions and should listen more than they speak when these topics arise. Religious observance affects daily routines and social expectations in ways that visitors should understand and respect. Prayer times influence business hours. Dietary restrictions affect meal planning, and religious holidays create different social rhythms. Understanding and respecting these patterns demonstrates cultural sensitivity and generates local goodwill. Women's safety considerations depend on location, situation, and cultural awareness. Urban areas generally provide similar safety levels to other Russian cities, while rural areas operate under traditional social protection systems that can be very effective for visitors who understand and respect local customs. Economic safety involves understanding local systems and avoiding situations that might create financial vulnerability. Banking services, money transfer capabilities, and emergency fund access can be limited in rural areas. Planning financial contingencies and maintaining multiple resource options prevents situations that could become safety issues. Natural hazards present genuine risks that require preparation and local knowledge. Mountain weather can change rapidly, creating dangerous conditions for unprepared hikers. Geological instability in some areas creates risks from rockfalls or landslides. Understanding and respecting natural hazards while maintaining appropriate preparation prevents most weather-related safety issues. Cultural misunderstandings can create social difficulties that might indirectly affect safety and comfort. Learning appropriate behavior for religious sites, family interactions, and community events prevents inadvertent offense that could make local situations uncomfortable or potentially problematic. Communication safety involves maintaining contact capabilities with both local networks and external support systems. Cell phone coverage varies in mountain regions, internet access might be intermittent, and international communication could be expensive or difficult from remote areas. Legal considerations for foreign visitors include registration requirements, visa compliance, and understanding local laws that might differ from home countries. Maintaining proper documentation and understanding legal obligations prevents bureaucratic problems that could affect safety and comfort. The emergency preparation mindset should include both modern resources and traditional local knowledge. Understanding how local communities handle emergencies, what resources are available, and how to access help through traditional social networks often provides more effective assistance than relying solely on formal emergency services. Finally, let's address the practical realities of visiting or living in Dagestan as a foreigner, because all the cultural appreciation in the world won't help if you can't legally enter the country or navigate the bureaucratic requirements. Russian visa requirements for Dagestan are the same as for any other part of Russia, and honestly, they're not as intimidating as people think. Tourist visas are available for most nationalities and allow stays up to 30 days. Business visas can extend longer and allow multiple entries. The key is planning ahead because visa processing takes time, and you'll need invitation letters from Russian contacts or tour companies. The invitation letter requirement often confuses people, but it's essentially a formality. Tourist companies, hotels, or individual Russian citizens can provide invitation letters that satisfy visa requirements. These don't create legal obligations, they're just administrative documents that allow consulates to process visa applications. Registration with local authorities is required within 7 business days of arrival in any Russian location. Hotels typically handle this automatically for guests, but private accommodation requires manual registration through post offices or migration services. This isn't optional, it's a legal requirement that can create serious problems if ignored. Language barriers are manageable but require realistic expectations. Russian proficiency opens most doors and creates significantly better experiences. English speakers can manage basic transactions in cities, but rural areas require either Russian skills or local contacts who can provide translation assistance. Currency and banking present practical challenges. International credit cards work in major cities but might not be accepted in rural areas. ATM access is limited outside cities. Cash remains the primary transaction method for most local commerce. Bringing sufficient cash reserves and understanding exchange procedures prevents financial difficulties. Accommodation options range from international hotels in cities to traditional guest houses in rural areas. Advance reservations are recommended, especially during festival periods or summer months when local tourism peaks. Understanding local hospitality customs helps navigate situations where formal accommodation might not be available. Cultural preparation is arguably more important than logistical preparation. Understanding appropriate dress codes, social interaction protocols, and religious sensitivities prevents inadvertent offense and creates opportunities for genuine cultural exchange. Basic knowledge of Islamic customs, Caucasian hospitality traditions, and local social hierarchies improves both comfort and safety. Technology considerations include internet access, mobile phone service, and electrical compatibility. Cities have reliable internet and cell coverage, but rural mountain areas might have intermittent or no service. Bringing backup communication methods and power solutions prevents isolation during technical difficulties. Health preparations should include routine vaccinations, basic medical supplies, and understanding local healthcare capabilities. Travel insurance with medical evacuation coverage is essential since serious medical conditions might require transport to facilities outside Dagestan. Seasonal planning affects both logistics and experiences. Summer months offer the best weather and access to mountain areas, but also bring higher prices and crowded conditions. Spring and fall provide moderate weather and fewer crowds, but might limit access to some remote areas. Winter travel requires serious preparation for challenging weather conditions. Transportation planning should include both arrival logistics and internal travel options. Makhachkala Airport provides the primary entry point, with connections to Moscow and other Russian cities. Internal transportation requires understanding local systems and having contingency plans for weather or mechanical delays. Work and business considerations for longer-term visitors require understanding Russian employment laws, tax obligations, and permit requirements. Opportunities exist for skilled professionals, but legal compliance is essential for anyone planning extended stays or income generation. Educational opportunities include language schools, cultural programs, and university exchanges. These provide structured ways to experience Dagestani culture while developing practical skills and local relationships. The expat community in Dagestan is small but supportive. Connecting with other foreigners who have successfully navigated local systems provides practical advice and social support. Online communities and social media groups offer resources for preparation and ongoing assistance. Integration strategies should balance cultural appreciation with maintaining personal identity and values. Successful long-term visitors find ways to respect local customs while preserving aspects of their own cultural backgrounds that are important to their well-being. Return planning should consider both logistical requirements and cultural adjustments. Leaving Dagestan often involves emotional challenges as visitors form deep relationships with local communities. Understanding departure procedures and maintaining ongoing relationships helps process the transition back to home countries. So here we are at the end of this cultural exploration. And if you've stuck with me this far, you've gotten a glimpse into something truly special. Dagestan isn't just a place you can live on $500 a month, though you absolutely can do that. It's a window into a way of life that prioritizes community over consumption, tradition over trends, and genuine human connection over digital relationships. Think about everything we've covered. A land where 30 different ethnic groups have created this incredible tapestry of shared existence. Where hospitality isn't just politeness but a sacred obligation. Where food traditions connect you directly to landscapes and seasons. Where festivals aren't just entertainment but living expressions of cultural continuity. Where natural wonders rival anything you'll find in National Geographic, but without the crowds and commercialization. The $500 budget isn't just about cheap living, it's about accessing a completely different value system. In most places, $500 barely covers rent. In Dagestan, it opens doors to experiences that money can't buy anywhere else. Invitations to family celebrations that showcase centuries of tradition. Access to natural areas that remain untouched by mass tourism. Relationships with people whose stories will change how you think about resilience, community, and what really matters in life. But let's be honest about what this requires. Dagestan isn't a tourist destination where you can maintain Western expectations while sampling exotic culture. It's a place that demands cultural humility, genuine respect, and willingness to step outside comfort zones. The rewards are extraordinary, but they come to people who approach this culture as students rather than consumers. The misconceptions we've addressed throughout this exploration reveal how incomplete our understanding of places like Dagestan really is. The Western media narrative focuses on conflict and conservatism, missing the incredible sophistication of societies that have preserved their cultural identity while adapting to modern realities. These communities have lessons to teach about sustainability, social cohesion, and finding meaning in an increasingly disconnected world. What strikes me most about Dagestani culture is how it demonstrates that modernity doesn't require abandoning tradition, and tradition doesn't require rejecting progress. You see this everywhere, from shepherds using smartphones to navigate ancient grazing routes, to traditional craftspeople using social media to market centuries-old techniques, to young people who speak 5 languages while maintaining deep connections to their ancestral communities. The economic reality of the $500 lifestyle reflects broader questions about what we really need for fulfillment and security. In consumer cultures, we're taught that happiness requires constant acquisition and upgrade cycles. Dagestani communities demonstrate alternative approaches based on social wealth, cultural richness, and connection to place. That's not romanticism, that's practical wisdom developed over centuries of surviving in challenging environments. For travelers and potential expats considering this adventure, understand that you're not just visiting a destination, you're entering a cultural ecosystem that operates according to different principles. Success requires patience, humility, and genuine curiosity about ways of life that might challenge your assumptions about everything from family relationships to economic systems to the role of tradition in modern life. The safety and practical concerns we've discussed are real and manageable with proper preparation and cultural sensitivity. The bureaucratic requirements are straightforward but inflexible. The language barriers are challenging but surmountable. The cultural adjustments are significant but rewarding for people who approach them as learning opportunities rather than obstacles. What you can't prepare for is how this experience might change your perspective on fundamental questions about community, identity, and what constitutes a meaningful life. Visitors often find themselves questioning assumptions about career success, family obligations, and the relationship between individual achievement and social responsibility. The hidden culture we've explored isn't hidden because it's secret, it's hidden because it operates according to values that don't translate easily into social media posts or travel brochures. It requires time, relationship building, and cultural investment to access the real richness of Dagestani society. But for people willing to make that investment, the returns are extraordinary. So comment that mountain emoji if you're ready to see the Dagestan that tourists never experience. But more importantly, ask yourself if you're ready to be changed by what you find there. Because that's what real cultural immersion does. It doesn't just show you new places, it shows you new ways of being human. The $500 lifestyle in Dagestan isn't just about stretching your budget. It's about expanding your understanding of what's possible when communities prioritize different values than individual accumulation. And in our increasingly fragmented world, maybe that's exactly the kind of hidden culture we need to stop hiding from.